Black. Am I glossy? Might be pregnant. Okay, let's just go. I'm not gonna pause it, but I will talk while. No, the girl at the door. Okay. Oh no.
It's the 22nd of November, 2019.
Okay.
A Ring doorbell begins recording as a young girl approaches a home in the Harriet Creek Ranch neighborhood of Texas. It's pitch black out and the girl is seen all alone, which by itself is strange enough, but it's moments later that this footage becomes truly concerning.
Okay. She has a flashlight? Or...
Help, please!
Oh shit. You guys don't have doorbells?
Please help!
She was begging for help, pounding her hand against the door, all the while continuously turning her head around, as if she was expecting someone to come up behind her. The footage then comes to an abrupt end, only to start again seconds later. But this entire time, no one answers that door. The wait was just too unbearable for the child as she then took off.
There's no one next door, so something happening at
Yelling
her
incoherently
house.
in the street before running out of view of the camera.
I think she said there's no
Frustratingly, this footage was
next
only
door.
viewed by the homeowner well after the fact, and reports seem to indicate that this was a property that they rented out rather than lived in, with it being unoccupied on that night. But after seeing the video, the homeowner immediately contacted law enforcement and shared the video online in the hopes that more information would come forward, as it seems that neither they nor the police had any idea who this child was or why she needed help. But since these clips were first shared, these questions have still yet to be answered, at least publicly, as there have been no updates from law enforcement. Along with this, there have been no accounts from neighbors about the incident or any footage from other homes in the neighborhood, perhaps implying that this was her one and only stop of the night. It's like after this footage, this girl dropped off the face of the earth, with this entire situation being a mystery to this day, leaving us with only theories. The first and most popular theory is that this girl was an escaped victim of kidnapping, or perhaps an abusive household, and had run to the closest home to ask for help. We've seen situations like this many times before, with the most popular example at the moment being the case of Ruby Frankie, whose son escaped their house and ran to their neighbor for help.
Wondering if you could do 2 favors, taking me to the nearest police station. Well, actually, just one's fine.
This certainly falls in line with this girl's behavior, as she was clearly scared about someone or something following her, hence why she kept looking back. And given that there have been no updates to this case, and that seemingly no one else saw her that night, it would indicate that whoever she was running from had recaptured her shortly after. And what makes this theory even more horrifying is that many online users believe that this girl isn't the only person shown in this footage.
Help, please!
As in the background, some can see what appears to be movement behind the bush, and potentially even a figure.
No, I think that's just the camera.
Please help!
I think that's just the camera. I don't think there's someone. She's saying there's no one
And
next
this just
door.
so happens to be the direction that this girl is looking in every time she turns back, almost like she knew someone was hiding there. Which brings us to our second theory, that this entire thing was a setup. The belief here is that this girl was coerced into going up to a stranger's home to beg for help, so that when this unsuspecting homeowner would open their door, those people who made the girl do this would then rush into the home and rob the person. This could explain why she was looking at that bush so frequently, as that's where this person or these persons would have been hiding, and she was looking to them for guidance, perhaps unprepared for the homeowner not to open their door. Both of these theories are disturbing in their own right, and both clearly indicate that this girl is in need of help, regardless of what the situation is. But still, there's been no confirmation as to whatever happened to this child, even despite the public interest. One of the biggest talking points online came from some theorizing that this girl might be Serenity Denard, a then 9-year-old girl who had gone missing in February of 2019 from a children's facility in South Dakota, who looked eerily similar to the child shown in this video. But in my research, I was able to find a Facebook post from one of Serenity's mothers, who shared that they were in fact aware of the video, and that they had actually contacted law enforcement about it. And in her post, she claims that investigators told her that the girl had been identified at some point, and that she had lived in that neighborhood, with there being no further elaboration as to why she was asking for help. This is quite literally one of the only updates I was able to find, but unfortunately it was one that I wasn't able to confirm, and it also fails to explain what exactly happened to this girl,
You gotta be one of the
leaving this
worst
footage
feelings
and this entire scenario
of losing your
as
daughter
one of the many
like that.
mysteries of the
She
internet.
was at a school and someone just took it. Like, you either have guns at school or you allowed kids to get taken
Throughout
by
my time
someone
here on
who's
YouTube,
not.
I've stumbled across some of the
parent.
most frightening things on the internet, but one of the discoveries that scared me the most was my own personal information.
Is Aura?
Who sold my information, making private things sponsor Aura.
Yep, Aura. The sponsor. And now we get ads. Windows 11? Or I forgot. Oops. Skip.
Here from the officer's view, and
Let's go back.
it started with a police chase.
Okay. Let's chase.
An officer parked alongside a highway in North Amsterdam had witnessed a black Mercedes speeding down the road and was now desperately trying to keep up with it. But the effort was to no avail, as the Mercedes would soon disappear from the officer's view. And when it would come back into view minutes later, it wasn't moving. It was instead left abandoned on the side of the road, the driver's side door hanging wide open, and the driver himself being nowhere to be seen, leaving that officer alone with the suspect's car, but no suspect. However, the vehicle hadn't been left entirely empty, as in the driver's rush to flee the scene, he had accidentally left his cell phone behind, and so the contents of this phone would be searched, which quickly led to the discovery of this driver's identity. But for investigators, there was a far more pressing finding on that device. A finding in the form of a minute-long video stored on the man's camera roll that indicated that this driver may have been involved in a crime far worse than just speeding.
Okay.
The footage was taken inside a different vehicle and showed an unseen driver holding up his cell phone alongside another man in the passenger seat. The camera was focused on a car in front of them, with both men seeming intent on catching up with it, as in the moments before this recording started, something had happened between them, which the men inside this car felt they had to get revenge for.
Voor ons net hebben brutaliteit met ons gemaakt. Deze mannen voor ons hebben net de brutaliteit. Raan, maat, ze gaan niet raan!
They referred to this unseen incident as an act of brutality by a group of men in this other vehicle, and by the looks of it, it's likely that this car had simply cut them off, as there was a freshly closed lane in the stretch of road at the time, which created an unexpected merge. And this is most likely what this group inside this separate car thought too, as they were showing no signs of road rage, and were instead just casually driving with the flow of traffic. However, it's clear that the men behind the camera felt differently, as in their minds, what this other driver had done to them was so awful that it was worthy of only one punishment: death.
What?
Gaan we zo moeten boeten. Ja toch? Oké.
What? I'm gonna have to pause this, okay? You know, every time that I use the word, or if I ever use the word retired, YouTube, it's because of people like them. They got cut off, even if they did. The right, it seems to be going smoothly, doesn't seem anything like bad happened or some shit. Someone cut you off. Who cares? Be like, hey, who cares? Let me just crank up some Juice WRLD and just go fucking on my way. Right? Just listen to Juice WRLD. And they decide, you know what? I'm going to shoot up the car because of that. This is when I use the word retired. And it's not retired. If you watch Deadpool and Wolverine, you know what the fuck I'm talking about. The Wesley Snipes scene. Blade. Retired? Yeah. That's the only time I'll use that word is to people like them, like this too. I do not use that word to attack anyone with any type of disability or anything like that, because actually I don't think that word is used for people with disabilities. If you have Down syndrome, if you have any other ones, they're just normal people with a little bit of a challenge, let's say. People like these two will just say, oh, let's shoot them because they cut me off, even though everything seems to go normal. They are the retired people. Retired. When you're old and you don't work anymore. YouTube and Twitch. I'm not gonna stop anymore. See, they're going normally, like, there's nothing. They did something brutal to us. You kiss your mom?
And so, this duo inched their vehicle closer and closer to this anonymous car,
Look,
while
there's a lot of
continuing their
police.
rambling about this act of brutality. And when they finally positioned themselves next to the vehicle, the man in the passenger seat brandished a pistol and pointed it directly at the driver of this vehicle. The footage from here is incredibly shaky, and the window had been rolled down, causing the audio to peak and become distorted and indecipherable. Because of this, it's hard to say for sure what happens next, but it appears that the man holding the gun attempts to fire the weapon before pulling it back into the car, cocking the revolver once more, and firing again.
It did sound like that was a shot.
To which both men erupt with laughter and begin celebrating, before the recording stops.
These are the people
Based on the
deserve to
footage,
get.
it's unclear what happened to the driver of this vehicle or the other occupants, and finding this information became priority one for law enforcement. In their research, they determined that this video was shot on May 12, 2014, at around 9:40 p.m.,
of a desk,
1 full month
so it
before
could
they
be
had
like-
stumbled upon it, and it had been taken on the A1 highway near entrance 2101. And yet, when they checked their files to match this information with any of their cases, they realized that there was no record of this incident. This crime had never so much as been reported, despite it seeming to depict a shooting in the middle of a busy highway. To make matters more confusing, police were able to track down the men who took this video and carried out the actual attack, and yet neither of them claimed to know what happened to the people that they shot at, and both refused to elaborate any further, leaving investigators in a strange position. They had undeniable proof of a crime, one that at the very least was attempted murder.
You
and
have
they
the
also
car,
had their
the model,
suspects.
3
They just
doors.
didn't have any victims.
You can
And so they
identify
studied the footage even more, which is
It's
when
easy.
they made a disturbing revelation about these victims. Throughout the video, the perpetrators refer to the people within this car as a group of men. And while the footage we have today has the occupants' faces blurred, they were able to conclude that the driver was in fact a man. However, they discovered that the passenger next to him is clearly a woman wearing a headscarf. And most shocking of all, in the back seat was what appeared to be a child, meaning that they had been shooting at what, in all likelihood, was a family. Police released this video to the public later that year under the name Amsterdam Sheet Incident Ringway A10, or Amsterdam Shooting Incident on Ring Road A10, where they revealed this footage but disguised the voices and faces of the perpetrators for unknown reasons. And in releasing this, they asked the public to come forward with any information that could help identify this family. They asked for witnesses on the scene, car repair shops that may have fixed the car with bullet holes, any hospitals that had shooting victims on or around that day, and most importantly, they asked for the family inside this car to come forward, as without their testimony, convicting these men was nearly impossible, as it wasn't fully clear what crime they'd even committed. That was 11 years ago, and to this day, no one has come forward, leaving us with only theories.
You know
The first
why?
theory is that the people shot at in this footage may have been undocumented immigrants, or perhaps one of them had a warrant out for their arrest, meaning that if they were to report this crime, or if they were to have gone to the hospital with a bullet wound,
I can say the
police would
first
have
one,
certainly gotten
maybe.
involved, and in turn they would have gotten in trouble as well, essentially forcing them to stay quiet as saying anything.
I can say it's the first one, maybe, or it was a family that was on vacation there, so they probably just went, like, maybe, let's say they're, I don't know, they're from an African country or some Asian country or some shit like that, so they went there and this shit never got to them, something like that, you know what I mean? It could have been like a family here in Portugal or in Spain, and they never saw this one because it was just like two days after whatever happened because apparently the footage is 1 month old. I said I wasn't going to
would
stop.
put their freedom in jeopardy.
They could have just
Another theory is
gone.
that the shots may have simply missed the vehicle, and the driver decided not to report it, with some believing that this whole situation was no big deal. But to me, this doesn't seem like something that would be so easily brushed off, especially because a child is involved, though it is possible that perhaps this family was afraid to report the crime, as they clearly knew how dangerous these men were, and feared that reporting this crime would only further put a target on their backs.
Or the gun.
And finally, there's the theory that this weapon never fired at all,
Or
This
had
is where the audio
blanks,
peaking
you know?
becomes a major factor, as it's extremely difficult to
Just
make out the
doom,
sound of
doom,
gunshots,
just shows
as the
the
gun was
doom.
literally outside of the vehicle when it was seemingly being
Kinda
fired.
shows the sound,
But it is worth
but
noting that investigators working the case seemed confident that the weapon fired at least once, and I also personally hear a distinct popping sound at the end.
yes, I do hear it too. I hear this one. That
But it's hard to say for sure. And it also is possible that this group was using blanks, with this all
That's
being
what
an
I was
attempt to
thinking.
trick the other driver into thinking that he was in danger.
That's what
But
I was
even with
thinking.
these theories, we still have no idea the fate that befell this family, and it's clear that they have no desire
For
to
them
come
to
forward,
record and do
for
this
reasons we just
being a
don't
crime,
know.
I think
Which
it
leaves
was
the Amsterdam
blanks.
shooting video, an internet mystery that may never be solved.
At least nobody got hurt. Oh no, Reddit shit.
Urgent, I need help, please.
Okay.
We are from BSAS West Zone, Castelar, San Juan neighborhood.
Okay.
Her name is Emma Rosario Culk, who's been missing since Friday, June 12th. If you saw her, please call. Any information will be appreciated. This post was made to the subreddit r/Argentina on June 16th, 2020 by a user named u/Naram, who asked for the public's help in finding a missing woman named Emma Culk, and in the comments he would offer more context, saying, "She went out to buy something and never came back. She was last seen here in the neighborhood. Sanchez and Pavan is the area where she went to buy something. She was dressed in the clothes that she's seen in the photo. She was carrying her wallet with her ID and a cell phone." Quickly, the post was inundated with concerned citizens wanting to help in the matter, with the gravity of the
What do I
situation
think that the
being
guy
made even
who
greater, as earlier
did
that day,
something
Naram
was
had
the
made
one
a
who
similar
did this?
post, which revealed that Emma Culk was actually his mother.
Hmm.
This revelation only made the post more important, as people left comments offering support and encouragement, with many even providing advice on how he could potentially track her down, to which Naram seemed genuinely grateful. Across the entire internet, this seems to be the first post ever made on Emma's disappearance, but it would be far from the last, as people spread this information far and wide almost immediately after Naram's post, which was also followed by several local news reports, which proved that Emma was in fact a real person and was in fact missing, with these articles mentioning something that her son had not, that she was feared to have been taken. The only thing we know for sure is that she went into her house, left her bike, and for some reason went out but did not come back in. Apparently, she did not leave on purpose, and that is what worries us the most. Things were clearly very concerning, and the tension of the situation
The
only
son did
increased as the
something to
day
her?
passed, and then too, with Naram vowing to keep everyone updated on the status of the search. And sure enough, right after this update, Naram's missing mother would finally be found. The worst news: Emma Rosario Culk was murdered. She had been missing since June 12th. Her son killed her with stab wounds and then buried her in the backyard.
The fuck did I just say? The fuck did I just say? I said the guy who wrote it was the one. He did it. And then was her son. And I was like, oh, the son did it. Oh my God. Fucking, as soon as this showed up, I said it. He was him. He did it. I don't know why I'm so excited by that. A woman just passed away. Got killed by her son. Castelar South, Moron. Oh, it's actually in Argentina, right?
Of his house. He was arrested. Rest in peace, Emma. Emma Culk had been found dead, murdered and buried in her own backyard, with the perpetrator allegedly being her own son, Daniel Culk, who had confessed to stabbing her once in the chest and then twice in the head before burying her body in the backyard, with a motive never being given. The ending to Emma's search was disturbing, but perhaps the most shocking part was the revelation that she was killed by her own son, 20-year-old Daniel Culk, which immediately called into question Naram's Reddit post, as he had claimed to be Emma's son, leading many to wonder, was Naram the killer? And so, desperate for clarification, someone commented, "By any chance, are you 20 years old?" To which Naram actually responded, writing simply, 25, before eventually leaving the following explanation. "Apparently it was my brother. That's what the police said when they declared the crime. This would mean that when Naram had been making these pleas to find his mother, in reality, not only was
so
she
it's not
already
him.
dead, but she had been killed by his own brother
But it was the
and
son.
buried in their backyard. It's one of the
I had
most
a
chilling
suspicion it
things
was
I've
in the
ever come
family.
across on Reddit, but
But
the
I didn't
intrigue of this
know.
case doesn't exactly end here, as there was something about Naram's story that wasn't quite adding up.
Okay.
Just days before the disappearance of his mother, he had left a comment on an unrelated post saying, "When I was 8 years old, I wanted to ride a bicycle without hands, according to me because it was easy. I was on the street, dirt, and I let go of the handlebars, and here I am at 19 years old, with the handlebars marked on my abdomen." In his own words, Naram wasn't 25, but instead 19 years old, and potentially 20 years old by the time his mother was found, which put him at the exact age range as Daniel Kolk.
Wow, so I don't know.
This prompted a wave of speculation and confusion and spawned the enduring mystery. Who exactly is Naram? While making things even stranger, digging deeper into his posting history, you can find another comment where he claims to have been working the same job for 6 years, which seemed to contradict the idea of him being 20, thus prompting even more confusion, which eventually caught Naram.
Actually, it doesn't. If we're talking about Argentina and maybe like a poor background type shit, he could have been working like a store or a grocery store or anything like that since he was like 14, 15. It could be a thing. Okay? It's not like if it's a city like not really well, it's not a big city, if it's not a big place, he could have been there working, for 5-6 years. It could have been. Even if he's 20, it could have been. It could be doing like, oh, I've been doing this for 5-6 years and shit, maybe like he was like 14 and he was doing like an hour or two in some places and shit like that. My mom always had like coffee places. Yeah, my mom and my dad. So since I was 12, I've been around that and actually working, serving and making coffee, making a lot of other shit since I was 12. So I don't. Again, I don't know what his mom used to do. So I don't know. But he could have been working with her or working since he was 14, 15. You talk about something from Argentina. It could be like a place where it's really, it could be like a poor village or some shit like that. So he could have been working since he was 14.
Just attention, who responded by stating, "I didn't write that. It must have been my brother. I don't use this social network. I only used it twice for a work issue and now because my mother disappeared. This account is not mine." This recounting of events made Naram's initial story even more twisted, as if this was true, then not only was it his own brother that killed the mother he was looking for, but he was literally using that same brother's account. And again, this gets stranger. Around the same time, Naram would thank the internet for its help on the case, and then proceed to swiftly disappear, leaving the account untouched for over 2 years. But this silence would be broken in 2022 when they suddenly returned, with their posts being slightly unhinged, gloating about their internet status and bizarrely lashing out at random users who questioned him on his past and present motives. And in these ramblings, he would drop the bombshell that he wasn't actually Emma's son. He now claimed to be Daniel's best friend, writing that he allowed Daniel to make the post on his account to spread the news about his mother's disappearance, which he was completely unaware that Daniel himself had caused. This was the last real update in this case, and it only threw more fuel on the fire of this mystery, with people wondering what version of events, if any, were true. When I hear about this case today, many seem to believe that the entire time Naram was actually Daniel Kolk, and he had made this post to make it seem like he was searching for his mother, and perhaps to even use any given advice to help conceal what he did. As remember, many were offering suggestions on how to find her, which Daniel in turn could have used to essentially do the exact opposite, to help make sure that she was never found. This is tricky because the account posted briefly after Daniel was supposedly arrested. However, the status of this case is entirely unknown to this day, as there have been no updates as to whether or not Daniel was actually charged, with some choosing to believe that this was him the entire time, and perhaps he was even held in prison for a few years before being released, thus explaining his 2-year absence. Another theory is that Naram was initially
He would not been 2 years in jail. He was 20. Either he got locked up in jail for a long time because he would have been a thing, unless there's something in the case that says he was like a self defense type shit. Even though if it's 3 stab wounds here and 2 here, I don't know. It doesn't matter. It would not be 2 years unless he was in like a mental asylum type shit. And again, if it's in a not really developed village or city or some shit like that, it could be, he was sent there for 2 years and then he came out. He came back. If it was, if it was, if he was, insane. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Actually
what I'm
telling
saying.
the truth, and that he was Daniel's brother, and that he was simply using the account to spread word of his mother's disappearance, before eventually abandoning it. And perhaps the most recent posting on this account was because it may have been hacked, which would explain the massive tone shift. Or maybe it's the most recent version of events that's the right one, and that this is actually Daniel's best friend. But why initially lie? And how do you explain the apparent inconsistencies in his age that are found throughout his posts? This entire internet mystery is one of the messiest I've ever come across, and nothing seems to make any sense, with the most inexplicable part being the very real murder at its core. A mother who was killed by her own son for no apparent reason, and given the lack of updates, it's hard to know if justice was ever served.
That is the only thing that actually matters, but it shouldn't matter.
It took several months for Angeline Pete's family to report
Because
her
it
as
shouldn't
missing.
happen. That's what I mean.
She had a long history of leaving home for extended periods of time, running off to join the circus and hitchhiking rides all across the Vancouver area, before eventually returning home to her normal life.
Why?
But this time it felt different.
Why?
None of her friends or family had heard from her since May of 2011, and it was now nearing the end of summer.
So she actually had friends. I guess like if you have like bad things at home, your parents are pieces of shit. Maybe something bad like that happens. But if you have friends, that means you can at least, talk to them and be with them. I'm pretty sure this is where Saint Marie made her. You broke me first. I think this is the street. I think the buildings look a little bit like that. I digress. Let's just go.
This was especially odd considering that Angeline was known to be constantly texting, as well as updating her Facebook profile, with that profile now sitting completely dormant. But within that page filled with your typical selfies and normal life updates, there was one post that stood out, the final post she ever made. This photo was posted without context on May 20th, 2011, a day that just so happened to be the very last time that the vast majority of Angeline's friends and family members had heard from her. And when looking into the context of this image, her disappearance only becomes more concerning.
There's some keys over there.
That night, Angeline had been drinking with her fiancé Robert Calden in downtown Vancouver, and while the two were waiting to catch a ferry back home, something had
How old is she? He said. Is she like 20 something? She has a fiance and sometimes she fucking leaves to join the circus? I thought she was like 12 or 13. I thought he was talking about a 12 or 13-year-old girl who would be like, yeah, let me run away from my parents' house because my parents are mean because they took away my Game Boy Advance, so I'm gonna go join the circus. She was of 18 and doing that?
sparked an argument, which eventually led to a full-on physical altercation. This fight caused such a stir that eventually police would arrive on the scene, where they noted that Angeline's lip had been busted, leading to them placing Robert under arrest. Though in the end, no charges would ever be filed, as Angeline refused to give officers a statement and instead insisted on just going home, which led to the whole thing seemingly being dropped.
That's normal.
It was directly after this that Angeline would post this photo to her Facebook account without any sort of context, before proceeding to disappear into thin air. Her motivation for doing this isn't 100% known, but one could assume that she was trying to make a record of this attack, perhaps in case something were to happen to her. The timing of this is more than a little suspicious, and paints a horrifying picture of the potential fate of Angeline. That she had been murdered by Robert Calden as a result of their fight on the 20th of May. It's a case that seems as straightforward as it is disturbing, but that's only on the surface, as there There was another factor
5 million or 5,000. My bad. She disappeared in 2011. She's from 1982. She was 29 at this time, and she would do something like that. She would sometimes disappear. I mean, if she was an adult, she doesn't disappear. Just just doing whatever the fuck she doing. That's why, like, just just don't do it. Don't do that. If you're over 18 and you decide to do this, at least like continue giving like update on whatever you're doing. My cat is biting attacking my hand right now. You guys can see if I can turn on that camera, but I'm not going to. So she was 29
factor at play here
and doing this.
is when the police stopped this couple from fighting on that fateful night.
She'll be
Robert
43
wasn't
right
the
now.
only one facing jail time.
So who else?
Angeline was no stranger to abuse. She had a long history of it herself, with her ex-boyfriend claiming to have suffered dozens of black eyes throughout their relationship, which had ended years prior. This violent behavior often stemmed from her trouble with alcohol, which had ended years prior, with her ex.
I probably got 40 black eyes over those years. When she had 5 or 6 drinks, she had no control. Oh, she was the abusive one.
Boyfriend claiming to have suffered dozens of black eyes throughout their relationship, which had ended years prior. This violent behavior often stemmed from her trouble with alcohol, and Robert was clearly one and the same, with the two forming an extremely toxic relationship that often ended in one or both of them getting hurt. It was all too normalized for the pair, which was highlighted by one of Angeline's final texts, where she wrote, "Gee, my lip hurts. I hate him so much that I love him." Now, I do want to make it clear that this is in no way meant to come across as victim blaming, but this is vital information for this case, as Angeline's history with violence had landed her.
Yo, you're right. She's a victim in this scenario that she's missing, or maybe she, something really bad happened to her. But before that, she was not a victim. She's an abuser. She was abusing boyfriend before. Ex-boyfriend. Maybe this guy and her were like abusive towards each other. That makes them both abusive and both victims, which means it could possibly blow up at one point, or if they decide to just go separate ways. But she was the victim in this case because she's missing, but before she was abusive. I don't think it's victim blaming. I think it's just putting out facts. She was she was abusive. Maybe she had some mental issues or some shit like that. But beating up other people doesn't matter if you drink or not, because here's the thing. I hate people who I hate drunk people. I hate people who drink and shit like that. But drinking does not make you aggressive. It's just who you are, period. Because there's a lot of people who drink, and all they do is start singing, start making jokes, being dumb. They're not aggressive. So you cannot blame the victim. You cannot blame the drink. But the victim wasn't aggressive. It was abusive. She was abusive. The same, the fiance. So they're both abusive. They're both hated by people.
Her in prison numerous times, most recently in 2009 when she was arrested for getting into a massive bar fight. This arrest in particular is noteworthy, as it carried with it multiple conditions.
I think
one of which was that Angeline was given a 9 p.m. curfew, and the other was that she was not allowed to drink, with both of these conditions being broken on the night of May 20th, when police intervened in her and Robert's fight. This meant that Angeline was now likely going to be reincarcerated.
She was looking for fights. Not only that, the fact that she had a boyfriend who was like that as well, and probably jealous, she probably got super excited getting into fights so that the boyfriend would get into the fights for her. You know what I mean? Like, so she can feel like he's fighting for me type shit. He's white knighting. So yeah, all that for me. And maybe she actually liked that. That's why, the other one probably would be like, dude, I'm sorry, don't. She's just drunk, and then she would beat him up. That could be everything.
And sure enough, that same night, officers arrived at her home to question her on the matter, but she failed to answer the door, which led to a warrant being made for her arrest
Just
5
one
days later on May
passed out.
25th. That day, a squad car pulled up to Angeline's apartment to bring her into custody, but when police entered the home, they would only find Robert, who just so happened to be on the phone with her. And officers claimed to have spoken with Angeline during that phone call, where they advised her to turn herself in, though she claimed that she was no longer in the area.
The officers have no idea how she sounds, right? Unless it's someone who dealt with her before, they have no idea how she sounds. And I don't want to be that guy, but when sometimes people call me, either my mom, my sister, or whatever, even my boss, who I usually talk pretty much every day, she sometimes calls me, and I was like, "Who's that?" Because the voice is different on the phone. I have another girl that I work with. She was calling me. I answered, and she was talking. I was like, "Who? Who are you?" And I talked to her every day for the last 2 years. We talked every day, pretty much. We actually even, because I have a phone at my station at the place that I work at, and she sometimes calls me, or I call her to ask for something, and I didn't recognize her on the phone, so. Oh, I'm just talking to Angeline. Yeah, can we talk to her? Yeah, sure, go ahead. And he's like, hey, what's up? It's Angeline here. Angeline, are you okay? Yeah, dog, I'm cool. You don't know how she sounds. What do you mean you talk to her? You talk to someone, you have no idea if it was her. You have proof that it was her? Maybe yes, and I stopped. Sorry.
Angeline during that phone call, where they advised her to turn herself in, though she claimed that she was no longer in the area, and eventually hung up the phone. This would be the last time that officers would speak to Angeline Pete, and seemingly according to Robert, she returned home and left the very next day on the 26th, and never came back. This whole revelation muddies the water in this case, and provides us with our second theory, that Angeline Pete had run away to avoid reincarceration. But there's something unusual to me about this phone call with police. Now, there's hardly any information about this case online, but from all the articles that I've read, it seems that no one in Angeline's life had heard from her after this photo was taken, with the exception of Robert. And when police spoke with her, it was only over the phone. They too hadn't laid eyes on her since the night of May 20th, prompting some to wonder if Robert had arranged for some sort of decoy to make this phone call. Though, however it happened, since that phone call, there has been no activity on any of Angeline's online accounts, and she has never deposited or spent a single cent from her bank account. From that point on, she's been essentially invisible.
She ran away,
that was
makes
15
sense.
years ago, and today we still have no concrete answers as to what happened
That's
to Angeline
2011.
Pete, with some taking this as a
14 years
sign that something sinister had in fact happened to her, is how can you go that long without leaving a trail, and without at least trying to come back? Especially in Angeline's case, as she was a mother. Angeline had a 7-year-old son who was by far the most important thing in her life. At the time she went missing, this child was staying with her father, Angeline's former partner, but she still played an incredibly active role in his life, and she wanted to be as involved as she possibly could be. And yet, after 15 years, she's made no attempts to try and reach out to him. Again, people have taken this as a sign that Angeline has perhaps been killed, and it isn't just Robert who they think might have done this, as some believe that she may have been killed by someone that neither they nor Angeline even knew. As I mentioned previously, Angeline had a habit of hitchhiking, and she was known to do so in a way that was overtly dangerous. And interestingly, there were some unconfirmed sightings of Angeline after she went missing, with some reportedly seeing her in Port Hardy and Grand Perrier, areas that she would have had to catch a ride to. Now again, these are totally unconfirmed sightings, but what's so chilling about this is that if she had been hitchhiking through those areas, then she likely would have found herself doing so along Highway 16, which is now known as the Highway of Tears. Without getting too deep into this stretch of road is notorious for its disproportionately high number of women who have gone missing on it, and especially Indigenous women, with Aboriginal organizations claiming that as many as 40 Indigenous women have been killed. Notorious for its disproportionately high number of women who have gone missing on it, and especially Indigenous women.
Why the fuck did the full screen just allows me to go back to go down? You know what I want to see? Is this. This one. This is obviously someone who did this. So 2 years, three, then multiple in this year. Then he stopped, and he went back. Stopped for 6 years again. Went back pretty much. 4 years could be normal. He did what he did, and then he kind of stopped. This leap here, the 10 years, the person who did it could possibly, that's why he three straight up in 3 years, and I bet this one was like January or February, and this one's late summer, mid fall, and beginning of winter. I don't know because I have no idea what this is, but I bet. So this 10 years, in this one, he was probably forced to stop. He or she, we don't know. And this one's, yeah, first one, and then the second one, then he had to like hide or something, and he went back for this one, and then boom, 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 three. He stopped a bit because he knew someone was probably getting close, so he stopped, boom, and started going for 2-3 years at a time, from this one's, almost got caught. Last one, and then 4 years, 3, 2, and then 6. And this time, 6 years, either he stopped or he got stopped by something. Then he went back into it, stopped a little bit, went back. Look, 3 straight away. I don't know. I can't tell if there's a point. There's 4 of them, like straight up. And then 10 years. This 10 year here means that he maybe got arrested for something completely different from this. He probably got arrested for something. Maybe like third strike. Like this one's the first one, and then this was the second one, and then this one was the third one, and he got 10 years. As soon as he came out, it was all this. And probably here around 2007, 2008, because this is what, like almost 4 years. Let's say he was like 20 or 30 here. Here he would be 70. He died between 2007 and 2010 from cancer. That's what I'm gonna say. I didn't even read anything like over here, so I don't know in whatever. So 38 years. Like I was saying, the person who did this probably already died of some disease, like maybe cancer or something like that, and between 2006 and 2010, and he started this around the age of between 27 and 34. Who did it? Why? I have no clue.
It's disproportionately high number of women who have
Because they do not look the same at all. Because if they look a little bit the same, maybe it was something. If they are all from a certain point, then it was probably someone in the. They said most they were indigenous people, right? So it could be. Oh. '14 and 25. The age is 14 and 25. So he had a type between 14 and 25. But this one looks older. Is this the guy? These two have the same, or no, my bad. Kamloops is probably the area. Okay, yeah, probably that, right? I was gonna say they have the same last name. I was gonna say because this one looks older. We need to investigate her son. All of them. And he stopped, snapped here with her, and had to get another one 2 years later. And then boom, 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 boom. Arrested for 10 years. Maybe for her. 10 years for her. He could be. And then he came out, boom, and then he died.
Gone missing on it, and
I
especially
lost so much time
Indigenous
with that.
women,
I'm sorry.
with Aboriginal organizations claiming that as many as 40 Indigenous women have been killed or kidnapped while on this stretch of road. And coincidentally, Angeline was an Indigenous woman herself, who may have found herself hitchhiking on that very road.
Don't hitchhike, period.
Angeline's disappearance is one of those cases that you can convince yourself that every theory is right. But as of right now, there's just no way to know what truly happened to her. And while this is an internet mystery for us, for Angeline's family, this couldn't be more real. Many of them are suspicious about Robert and believe that police didn't do a good enough job investigating him, as he was never even considered a suspect. But they also hold on hope that Angeline is still alive and out there somewhere, and they'll often hold events and vigils to keep her name in the spotlight, and to assure
Wasn't he was taken to the... Okay, wait. Because I talked too much about that thing, the other thing. Did he got taken away by the cops, even if she didn't, said anything. They probably kept him there for like a night or something to, So maybe she disappeared if they actually talk, but if they think they talked to her. Oh, but that was 5 days because she had a warrant for her arrest for 5 days. My bad.
she knows that she can always come back home. And it's this hope that has fueled her son since she disappeared, as all throughout his childhood he played hockey as a way of helping to find her, with one family member saying, "That's why he wants to play hockey. So if he gets famous, his mom will find him."
Oh, I mean, he's 21. Is he? Is he famous? 21, 22? I don't know. This kind of fucking thing kind of pisses me off for the fact that a lot of fucking son of a fucking bitches allow guns to be around in schools, but they don't have anything protecting someone, man or woman, to just go there and take them. She was 9 years old. She was taken from her Black Hills Children's Home. So she was taken from a place like that. No one was like, okay, you stay here until it's time. You don't know everyone, like their parents or anything. Where's the teachers? The teachers don't fucking care. Was she going home alone? Bro, she's 9. Do not let your kid go alone at 9. 12, sure. If she has a brother, that's one thing. Never alone. Okay, we're done.